freestyle flow. And I think it's time to set the scene. I deserve an Emmy for this by any means. I'm in my prime time to unwind, like fast, so I sip slow. Control the moments as the sips go. Seat to seat, that's how the ships go. That's the way life goes. Flow with it, or you can flow alone. The waves crashing, they boasting. Just another beautiful ocean, waiting to be cleaned up and seen. But do you even got your cells up? Let your beauty show, feelings bottled up. It's uncorked time to expose your mind. Let your thoughts show that red pill was chose. Into the rabbit hole we go, speaking on the topics, the killings, the gossips, the goods and the my bads. I made the wrong choices. Outlet for the people with no voices. Problems we surrounded. A space for the masses. Giving vision to the blind. Grab your glasses. I said by problems we surrounded. A space for the masses. Giving vision to the blind. Grab your glasses.
Hi guys, welcome to The Wind Down. I'm your host, Emmy Petit. Thanks for joining me today. We're going to be talking all things immigration on today's episode. So go ahead and grab a glass and let's get started. Today I'm drinking this wine called Epica. It's from Chile and it's a 2015 wine. I've never had it before, so I'm going to try it for the first time with you guys today. Go ahead and let me know in the comment section down below what you're sipping on, because I always want to know. Now, I purposely chose a wine from South America. I was going to choose one from Central America because we're going to be talking a lot about that region today. So let's see how this goes. I forgot to swirl. Still good though. Very good. So like I said, we're talking all things immigration on today's episode. Some would say it's one of the biggest topics that people are talking about in politics. And that's definitely the case. The 2016 election proved to be true that immigration was going to be the deciding factor of the election, at least for most people. Trump talked about the wall, he talked about security, he talked about the borders, he talked about illegal immigrants, criminals, drugs, all of that having to do with immigration. So there really isn't a reason to say that immigration isn't one of the biggest topics right now in politics. And in fact, just last week, President Trump made some comments about how our immigration laws are a little too weak. Take a listen for yourself.
Just look at our southern border and our weak and obsolete immigration laws. They are obsolete and they are weak and they are pathetic. And there's no country in the world that has laws like we do. They've got to change, and they've got to change now for the safety of our country.
Now, those comments were made during a press conference with the Nigerian president, and he was just talking about the border security and how our laws are just a little bit too lenient. Now, that might have something to do with the migrant caravan that was traveling through Mexico. It traveled from Central America through Mexico to the U.S.-Mexico border, with almost 200 migrants who are seeking political asylum. Now, political asylum is basically a way for people of other nations to be granted access to this nation if they fear for their life in their own country. So a lot of the Central Americans were fearing for their lives as there was a lot of violence, a lot of political warfare, and just not the best economic conditions over there. Now, President Trump was pretty clear about the fact that everyone needed to wait their turn because they have to be processed in order to get that political asylum. So as of today, all of those migrants are in the U.S., they are being detained, and they're going to be processed in order for them to make a case for political asylum. Now, in order to make that case, they have to prove that there is truly harm in their country and that they truly need the assistance of the U.S. and to be able to stay here for political asylum. Now, there are other immigrants you would say, who are here on temporary status, known as temporary protected status, kind of in a similar position, except they haven't crossed the border or traveled to be here. The U.S. actually granted that temporary protection to many countries as their countries were in political warfare, one of which is Haiti. I got the chance to speak with one TPS recipient who received TPS after the earthquake in Haiti, and he got to tell his story and how he is now here temporarily, but may actually lose that status. Take a look.
Prior to TPS, like, I kid you not, like, leaving my house was really, like, there was anxiety because you just never know. My name is Kesna Dagobert. I am 27 and I currently live in Pompano Beach, Florida. I'm from this place called Cap Haitian, Haiti, OCAP. And as far as getting here, it's I can't give the details because I was so young. But I do know my father got me here illegally. At high school, when I was around 17, I remember it was my junior year, I actually was trying to go to college. And that's when they kind of broke the news that, like, I wouldn't be able to attend because of my status. I didn't have the proper paperwork. So, like, it put me, like, in a depression state. So my senior year, I kind of slacked off completely. I cried. I cried because I was really, really good at school. So I was looking forward to college. I have friends who were in sports, who went off to do the whole sports thing. I have friends who went out of state. And so up until that point, I thought I was going in that direction, not sports, but like in that direction of being able to go out to college, being like a 17-year-old American kid, I guess. And so it really put me like in a depression state. I started becoming kind of antisocial. I didn't want to be around people as much. It was devastating. As I mentioned, I really started skipping school. I didn't see the point of it. So I kind of lashed out in a way in my sadness or depression. But yeah, it was really tough. I remember asking my father, like, why didn't he get that taken care of? And he showed me the paperwork, but it was denied once, maybe twice. And I think he himself got to a point where he didn't know what to do. Unfortunately, because a lot of people were affected by it, unfortunately, I believe it was 2010, early 2010, there was an earthquake that occurred in Haiti. And I don't recall how long it took after the actual earthquake, but they started this thing called TPS. And so one of my relatives told me to apply for it, and it kind of gave me like a space to be able to be a regular person in that sense. I was able to drive for the first time. That was like really cool. So at 19, 20, when they approved, like, what they started doing the TPS, like, I was able to start working, provide for my family, and then so that's really when like it kind of turned as far as my status goes. My TPS is due to expire on July 22nd, 2019. Now, like, my mind starts racing to like the conclusion, like, okay, so what happens after that? Obviously not only for myself, but for everyone else who's currently on TPS. For me and my wife also, it's really been anxiety, fear, uncertain, just a really scary situation. So I try not to think about it too much, if I'm honest, but every once in a while it'll creep up if I see something on the news or something like that. It's like, oh yeah, this is real, it's happening. So I am in the process of getting my status adjusted from protection status to residence. If I was by myself, I can get to a point of saying, okay, it is what it is and whatever, but because I do have my wife and 2 kids, it kind of plays the role in why I would fight so hard to be able to be there, to be here, to fight, to remain with them, to parent and, see your kids. So, and obviously I'm not the only one with kids who's on TPS. So I also think of the parents who are here, and in their mind lingers the thought of, man, I might not be able to take care of my kids or be with my kids. So it's a tricky situation. I don't feel like I'm owed anything that I didn't work for, so I don't have like an entitled thing. I do myself hope that I have the opportunity to be there for my kids, to be there for my wife, to be able to provide. And so like it kind of even played into a role when I was approved for the TPS. It was like, yes, I'm able to work. Like, my friends used to look at me like, it's just a job. And I used to be like, you don't understand, like, I'm actually able to work. I'm really hoping that I'm able to like be here, take care of my kids, not be so scared of like, oh my gosh, like I'm getting sent back to a place that I don't even know.
So, what did you guys think of Kesnel's story? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Now, although Kesnel is an immigrant from Haiti, he's not the only one on TPS. There are 22 other countries here in the US who have their citizens who are now on TPS here in the States. The Trump administration has ended TPS for 4 of those countries, which leaves 300,000 people left to figure out what's to happen in the next year to come, as their TPS protections end in 2019. So let me know your thoughts. Do you think that Kesnel should be able to find a pathway to citizenship and others like him as well? Or do you guys think that temporary status means exactly what that means? Temporary. How temporary should that be? Now, as far as the migrants are concerned, let me know what you guys think. Should these migrants be given political asylum? How should we decide that their country isn't suitable for them to live there? Let me know in the comments below. Now, I spoke with an immigration expert, and he gave me a rundown of a lot of different things that I didn't know about in regards to immigration. I'm going to have you guys take a listen for yourself as to what he had to say about it. Hi guys, thanks for tuning into the Wind Down podcast. I'm your host, Emmy Petit, and we are here today to talk all things immigration. Here to help me have this conversation with you guys today is Fernand Amandi. Fernand, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great, Emmy. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Nice.
So Fernand is actually one of the professors at the University of Miami. He teaches a course on immigration reform, and he's also the host of the Strange Days podcast.
That's right.
And also, you are a strategist, a political strategist here at Vindickson and Amandi. Is that correct?
That's the rumor.
All right. So you're the expert on all things immigration, and I'm actually curious to know your immigration reform course that you teach at the University of Miami. What is that course about? What do you tell your students? How are they exploring the topic of immigration?
Well, you know, it's funny, Emmy, because the idea behind the course then and now, immigration was really at the forefront of what was driving a lot of the policy interests. We first taught it actually before the presidential election, when immigration, you might argue, was the main issue that galvanized a lot of support, certainly for Trump, who ended up getting elected. But the idea was really to try and provide a policy context for how this issue was shaping America and why it was becoming such a dominant political and cultural and social issue.
And like you said, the 2016 election, a lot of the discourse was about immigration. It was one of the major things. We heard about the wall, we heard about criminals, we heard about just illegal immigration. It was just a reoccurring theme throughout the election. And now that Trump is in office, he talks about this 4-pillar system. Do you know what that is? What's that about?
Well, I do. First of all, I think it's important for your viewers to understand why this is such a polemic issue, because a lot of people say, well, wait a minute, hold on. You look at all the public opinion polls, most Americans want a comprehensive immigration reform. They want to see the status of the undocumented living in this country, in other words, become a pathway to citizenship. But we see so much controversy around the issue, and fundamentally, what I think is dividing the country around the issue is immigration as a representation for the changing demographics of the United States.
Is there an argument, because I think a lot of the conversation around the election time was that a lot of the immigrants were bringing about criminal activity, violence, gangs, drug activity. Is there an argument to be made for that? Is it, you know?
Well, there's not a science or a data-based argument to be made.
Okay.
Which is, as a researcher, I go by what the data says, what the science says, what the evidence says. I mean, I would humbly offer that to suggest that immigrants are more responsible for spikes in crime and illegal activity is alternative facts. It's not consistent with what the data shows. But they become convenient scapegoats for a lot of people to talk about the problems that are impacting society. Now, does that mean that there are not some immigrants, undocumented immigrants, that aren't involved in crimes? Of course there is. No strata of society is not touched by crime and criminal activity. Having said that, this is the group that is the most likely not to commit crimes. Why? Because they don't want to get deported. They don't want to get in trouble. They don't have legal status. And you tend to see in the populations where you have undocumented immigrants much less by way of the crimes. If anything, these crimes are driving without a license, because sometimes they don't have a license, or driving in a moving violation because they're all obviously mobilized and they're moving around, but they don't have the status that allows them in some places, in some states, to get papers and licenses and whatnot.
And also, with you mentioning that, a lot of times these undocumented immigrants, they're coming here for jobs, right? They're looking for a way to create a better life. So some argue that that is now taking away the opportunities away from Americans, maybe working class Americans who want to have those jobs in agriculture or, in a service field industry where they can provide for their families. Is there an argument to be made based off the research that you've seen?
I mean, I think there's a legitimacy in that point of view, but the fundamental fact is this, and we've seen it right now. Any American right now today can go and get a job if they want to, picking fruit in California, for example. But what they've found is that a lot of Americans don't want to do those jobs, or working in hotels as the maids who clean the rooms, or working as busboys or valet, or working in labor construction. That doesn't mean that there aren't certain jobs that I think Americans would like to have access to if the wages were a little bit higher. That's a different type of discussion. But fundamentally, if there were no jobs here, if there wasn't an availability of jobs, the immigrants likely, in most cases, would not come.
Maybe see what you're talking about on Twitter.
Well, we have a weekly podcast. It's strangedayspodcast.com. On Twitter, you can find it at my page, which is @AmandiOnAir, and we're up every Wednesday, and we really enjoy doing it, so it's a lot of fun.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, and cheers to the wine down.
Cheers.
Make sure you got to be 21 if you're going to do this at home, right?
Absolutely.
And congrats, you got a great one here.
Thank you so much. So that was just a quick clip from that interview with Fernand Amandi. He's an immigration reform expert. So if you'd like to listen to the full interview, you can find it on the Wind Down podcast, which will be available tomorrow morning. Now, Glorielle, she shared her opinion about the TPS recipients, and I want to share that with you guys. She said, "I think it's really sad. There are so many young adults now who have grown up here, and America has been the only country they know." Glorielle, thanks for sharing your opinion. A lot of Americans agree. Thanks so much for tuning in to the Wind Down. I enjoyed sharing all your views. It's been a pleasure to be here today, and it's been a pleasure to drink this wine. It's great. So for now, stay in the know and keep sipping, my friends. Have a good one.